So first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you to the team at Pace. We've been friends for almost 20 years now, so it's kind of scary that I've been doing this long. But they asked me to come and speak to you about the business of content and if I were you. So this whole thing is, I really tried to think about if I were in your place. And the first thing is I got scared because I'm semi-retired. I'm like, I gotta work again! Like, please, this is horrible. The second thing is I saw the demo for GPT 4.0. Did anybody watch this? And it was going to be a really short presentation. I was going to say, if I were you, I would find a new job. But then I was like, let's be positive about it. So we'll go from there as we work through this. I had a little fun with ChatGPT 4, so I have some crazy images that I put together. This is one of them. This is my reminder to tell you that some of these things you will not feel are relevant to you. That's okay. But I'm trying to find one thing that you can take that will resonate and you can do something with or think differently about the content business. So I'm going to ask you later if you found that one thing, so hopefully you will find that as you go. See how close? There we go. I'm going to have to stand over here a little bit just to make sure we go. So when I thought about if I were you, I wanted to put this disclaimer out that I have no concern for any kind of budgetary issues, staffing, corporate buy-in, or your own job safety. So didn't even think about that at all, just what I thought I would do if I were in your, so here we go, if I were you. But I have to tell you a story first, so we're going to do that. So here are the 6 headshots I set up for over my career, my 25-year career. Isn't that strange that I put that up there? So the first one, I was 33. This is when so there's a point to this. When I started what became Content Marketing Institute in 2007, I was 33 years old. And these are 3 of the books, many books that I read and engaged in, but these are the 3 that made the most impact on me. And if I was to sum up what they were trying to tell me, it was 1, create assets that you can control if you want to be successful, especially with the business of content. And the second one is diversify your revenue streams. Simple, right? Makes sense. And if you look at it from, I want to be a millionaire standpoint, you would look at those and that make perfect sense because this lonely person, let's say this is not a millionaire on this side. Not a millionaire probably has 1 source of revenue, maybe 2, right? They have a job. But if you are a millionaire, multimillionaire, billionaire, successful business, whatever the case is, you have stocks and bonds and you have multiple jobs, or you have multiple businesses, you probably have a little crypto, you got all kinds of stuff going on, right? So you have many different ways that you're driving revenue. So if you think about that throughout the presentation, that's what I thought of when I wanted to launch a media business. So that gets me to, what was the business of content in 2007? So, as Gordon said, I started Content Marketing Institute, and I started with, we have to build assets we can control, and we have to diversify revenues. And that was my whole thing. So we created lots of wonderful assets. Some of these you might know, Content Marketing Institute, Content Marketing World, the awards program, the university, the magazine, the podcast, whatever, and there's more. This is all up to 2016 when we sold. So that was my goal, is to create all these assets. And this is what it looked like. And it was a very simple model and actually very easy to replicate. It's like, okay, great. I'm going to put articles on my website or blog, email newsletter, do proprietary research, print magazine, in-person events, books, and podcast. Or podcast came a little bit later. But that's basically the model. And you're like, this is easy. Anybody can do this. You can take any type of content niche, go at it from this perspective. Don't do it all at once, please. But you can say, okay, I'm going to do 6 to 9 months. We're going to do this one. We're going to launch it. We're going to build an audience. Then we're going to monetize that audience. We're going to move on. And this is basically how media was done in 2005, 6, and 7. This is my reminder to say, yes, this is great. Assets. It's wonderful. We're building something of value, and we're going to be successful because we have these assets that we can monetize over time. And this is for my book in 2015, Content Inc. But basically the idea is, once you build a loyal audience that knows, likes, and trusts you, you can monetize it multiple ways. The inner ring are direct ways, I'll talk about that later. And the outside ring are your content KPIs, right? I'm gonna sell more products, a win goal, right? I'm gonna sell more services. I'm gonna keep our customers more loyal, which is where I got my start in custom publishing or custom media, if you wanna call it. That's where it was all about loyalty. Or we're gonna create better customers. So I'm sure you all have your own content goals, and they probably fall in here one way or another. And we did really well. So after losing money a couple years, we had $1 million in revenue, I think in 2011. And then for the next 3 years, we did great, wonderful growth. We sold in 2016. My wife was very happy. And I told her I would never start another business again, which was a big lie, because I started many since then, but we're still married, so I'm lucky for that. So assets and revenue, okay? That's all I'm thinking about is assets and revenue diversification. Then, what happened was this wonderful gift that we were given in the form of social media. And it was awesome because we thought, great, we can take all this wonderful content we're creating, we're gonna put it through these pipes, it's gonna get in front of our audience, they're gonna come to know, like, and trust us, we can generate more revenue, and everything is great, right? This is amazing, it's gonna work really, really well. So our formula ended up changing. So the change formula was, we weren't building assets anymore. We were supplying the content, they were supplying the audience. We were taking time off from this asset-driven model that we thought that we were going to do. By the way, this is advertising. Same thing, right? We're just renting the audience, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not an advertising hater, I'm not a social media hater. It's just a different model for the business of content. So we changed from this, and you saw this one before, and it looks like this in the 2010s. It's like, okay, we're not gonna create so much content on our website because a lot of it's gonna be focused on Instagram and TikTok. We probably still have an email newsletter or multiple email newsletters depending on our audiences. We're gonna spend some time on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Amazon, and maybe we've got a podcast or two, but basically, not a lot of assets here anymore. Most of our time, a lot more of our time is spent on other people's platforms. Again, not necessarily wrong, but our model definitely did change. So we traded out these future assets because we thought this was the right move for our model. And by the way, almost all media companies did this as well. This is not just marketers. Everybody in the business of content did the same thing. We traded out our assets. And we got some good things. So Mr. Beast was created, Jimmy Donaldson, maybe one of the greatest content creators of our time, a wonderful thing, he's doing some amazing things. We got Kim Kardashian, which we see it is wonderful, right? Is it? I don't know. But we see her everywhere because of social media, and we see this guy all the time. I saw him in the NFL draft, I'm like, who the heck is that? He's having his 15 minutes, that's wonderful. Anybody ever played this game? Yes? A couple hands? This is new to me, so I've been learning about it. It's called Flux. And basically, depending on where you are in the game, depending on who gets a certain card, the rules change in the middle of the game. Is that correct? And I guess kids really like that. They get frustrated, but they really like it. Oh, the rules are all different now. Well, does that sound familiar to all of you? I just pulled out some things. So there's lots of complaints because all this organic reach that we receive through social media, all this content we're creating, it's going away. We don't have this organic reach anymore. This is very sad. And we're like, okay, well, why did this happen? Because these private companies like Meta and TikTok, they are prioritizing their revenue for, you call it user experience, but they're driving more revenue through this current algorithm, through this current model, and they don't care anything about us at all. And probably they shouldn't. They're saying, this is our new business, and we want to serve this audience of a billion consumers, and we're going to serve them really well, and that's really hurt us as we go on. This was interesting, it happened last week. So Instagram comes out and says, basically, that they're going to try to duplicate TikTok's algorithm exactly. And so they put this guy, this dreamboat here, Adam Mosseri, the CEO of Instagram. He's got his Mr. Rogers sweater on. He looks very, very calm. He's very nice, right? Like you'd invite him in, you're like, this is a good guy. And he comes up and says, well, here's the issue. We are going to treat all content the same. And basically couched it as, We like our new creators. We want our new creators to be successful. We don't want to hurt their chances to be found, so all of it's going to be treated the same. So what does that mean for all of you that have built your followings over the past many years with this amazing content? It's really not very good. If you're guessing, it's not a good thing for you because you're competing with the person that created the first piece of content. You know, the followers may not even see your stuff. And I'm not even going to get into this. This was yesterday. And Google comes out and they basically say everything's going to be AI-ified, or however they're doing it. And I'm under the assumption that there are many lawyers already very excited about this move because you won't see any links. Well, they're testing it out. I don't know if you've seen some of the results yet, but that you'll just get the answers. And they will pull them from the content that all of us have put out there, and probably breaking all kinds of copyrights, but that's not for today. That's for some other day. But that means that web publishers like us are not going to probably get the traffic that we once were, because the answers will be given in a different way. And Google's doing that. Is this familiar? Is this happening? Is anybody really killing it with social media organic reach these days? If you are, that's great, because you can finish this presentation. You can't find anybody who's doing it. And it's not bad, it's just something we have to deal with, right? So the algorithm's one. We have no control over who sees our content. Even our followers may not see it anymore. We know this. We could get banned. The rules will change. They're so big they don't need us. We probably should have known better, but we didn't, because it was so amazing that we had this opportunity. So this is my friend Jay Klaus. Sometimes we need a reminder of what we're supposed to do with all this. And Jay comes out and says, this last part is really important. We think that we need to be on all these platforms, and we think we need to create more content for these social media platforms, but actually the goal is the opposite of that. We want to reduce our dependency on those platforms and put those into assets that we can control so that we can diversify revenues and hit our KPIs, and which will be very hard to do on platforms we don't control. So, I was going to say we have to go back to the future, or we have to go to 88, whatever that means, but we have to think a little bit differently, and I think it really goes back to the model of 15 years ago, if you think about assets. So here's back to you've already seen this. This is what we put up for 2020s. And I think the 25 is going to look like this. I'm not saying we shouldn't be on social. You are very big brands. You have relationships there. You have political battles that you're fighting. There's all sorts of things that are going on and reasons you need to be there. And probably in a lot of cases, most of it's commenting and being around the conversations of your customers, if they're still on there. But just say, okay, focus on one or two of these things. Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. You pick your one or two that you really want to own. You're creating great content experiences. You're doing your best to figure out those algorithms. That's fine. I get that. We should do that. But all these other things, I think this is where we focus. Amazing email newsletters that are not salesy, that really are hit home. We have that opt-in information. We have to, because we're not getting more traffic from Google and these other sites, that means our web content has to be that much better. That means those people that are getting to our site really want to be there. So we have to tell amazing stories to move them along on our site. Really, really, probably more important than ever is our web content. Communities, memberships, in the future, not now, that's a different conversation. Tokenization might be there, SMS, courses and webinars, in-person events, I'll talk about that later. Direct sale of books, Gordon and I were just talking. It's like, okay, if you are doing a book as a brand or some individual, why would you send everyone to Amazon to buy that book? I'm not saying you shouldn't be on Amazon, but why do we inherently think that that's where we get books today? It's like I have a relationship with a customer, I'm going to send them off and their data and their revenue or my pricing power and all that to somewhere else, and I might not ever see them again. Why don't you keep them on your website? It's just we don't think about those things because we said, well, Amazon won. I don't think they have impact. So anyways, this is the type of thing that I want you to think about. And I think there's a big opportunity. So we're going to take our content land back. So as I thought about the 6 things that I want to leave you with today, That's all I'm thinking about is, again, assets and revenue. So now this is the real presentation. See, I got a lot of stories ahead of time. So that's what I've been thinking about over the past many months is, I think in a lot of cases we've lost our way, but I think we can find it back easily because you're all great storytellers. Pace is a great partner to work with. I think we have solutions for doing this, and so here's the 6 things I want you to think about as we move forward. So here's number 1, and I numbered them with nice, cool numbers in the corner, so you know which one. I'm sorry, it's terrible. For you creative designers here, I'm so sorry that I'm the guy that uses ChatGPT-4 to just create all these weird images that I want. So the first one is hunting for assets. So this is what I would do. I would be starting to hunt for assets that are out there that I don't have to necessarily create. Now, you're going to create lots of stuff, and you should. And you should be creating lots of web content and print experiences and in-person experiences and doing all those things organically. But I grew up in business-to-business publishing, and when I had to do a P&L, we were looking at our growth for the next year, and our growth came from 2 different places. The first one was, okay, organically. What's your organic growth? With the brands you have year over year, what are you going to do? Great, there's that. And the other half was, what are you going to go acquire? What are those magazines or newsletters or podcasts or whatever else that are already out there that you can acquire and bring in, and you don't have to necessarily spend 18, 24, 36 months to build an audience. You already have it, you built a brand, or there's a brand out there, so that's what I would do if I were in your position. And here's a really good example if you're not familiar with it. So this is Arrow Electronics. Arrow Electronics, big, huge, Fortune 119 company, $23 billion a year, business-to-business electronics. They wanted to become the leading expert for the electronics industry in business-to-business. Well, how do you do that overnight? If you were going to put a content strategy together, it would take a decade or more to do that. There's 1 million plus of those people out there. It'd be very tough to do that. So they said, well, let's look at acquiring. Is there anything available? Well, they went out and they found that UBM was looking to focus more on the event business, and they were getting rid of their web properties, which was a really stupid, is this being recorded? Which was a really stupid decision. Why would you do that? Because they were like, oh no, we don't need these web experiences because nothing will ever happen that will deter people from going to in-person events. I'm going to let that sit with you. 2020 came around and then the business was in trouble. So they decided, Arrow, which was an advertiser of many of these publications, approached them, came up with this opportunity. They bought all these brands. So now today, if you say, who's the leading expert or who's the leading media company in the B2B electronic space, I'd say it's not a media company, it's Arrow Electronics. They've done a great job with it. By the way, this is a profitable entity on revenue alone. They're not even talking about KPIs for marketing. They make money alone on all these. If you've seen, this is another just example. HubSpot bought The Hustle a couple years ago. The important thing about this one is if you think about your budgets and what you're going through and how much it would cost to do this acquisition was 6% of their annual sales and marketing budget. And they purchased well over, there was 1 million entrepreneurs that were subscribed to The Hustle. And this was just a slam dunk acquisition for them. But I think in a lot of cases, we're not thinking that these opportunities are out there. So what I'm going to do in your position is I'm going to figure out in each of the markets that you serve, where your customers hang out. Where are the creator blogs? Where are the podcasts? Where are the newsletters? Where are the YouTube channels? Be careful with the social media, but it's still out there. You're still seeing acquisitions done in that area. This will probably, if I'm good at predictions, which I'm not, I'm terrible at them, but I would say in the next 5 years, this is going to be a part of your job and nobody's going to question it. You absolutely would think you're in the acquisition business. Because you're media companies, like it or not, you're doing this, and that's what media companies do in order to It's like, I don't want to wait 5 years for this growth. We need this growth now. What are we going to do? We're going to buy this. And by the way, creators, they don't. A lot of cases, they want to get rid of these properties. Well, they've been doing it for 7, 10 years. They built up an audience. They can't monetize it like you have, or like you can. So there's a real opportunity there. That was one. Here's two. So I want you to grow your employee creators. This is how I envision your employees. But first of all, you all know this, right? Your employees are your best marketers that you have. We don't feel that way because you know these people. But it's true. It's true. And if you wrap your arms around that and then understand how good many of your employees are at creating content already that you probably haven't looked at, there's a big, big opportunity. And this is how I see it, where you have your customers that would think they want to buy one of your employees' jersey. I would think about it that way. Like they are a fan, they could be fans of one of your employees. I think that if you give the resources to some of your employees, this is a big opportunity. And you work with your team. This would not be all internal, external, but you basically create a resource department as part of marketing. And that, I know some of you are scowling. It's okay. I know you don't, but I think this is really important. If you look at this, you say, I'm going to make sure you give them the resources. And this is how I think it would work. You don't put too much burden on them. You say, okay, well, we're going to have internal subject matter experts on all these areas. You have many, dozens of, some of you have dozens of areas. You got to pick one channel. So as a creator starts, they don't just become a content creator. They start as a YouTuber, a TikToker, a blogger, a podcaster. That's how you're going to do this. So when you figure out who's good at one of those things, so they're really good at audio, they're really good at video, they're really good at writing, then you start to position them. They have an expertise in this area. You figure that out. You set them up to produce consistently, and then you integrate them in there into your own content plan. Salesforce did this really. Anybody from Salesforce here? Salesforce, maybe tomorrow. Salesforce, that's right, somebody's Salesforce is speaking tomorrow. They had a Web3 initiative, which they don't have anymore. But when they did, they launched it with Matthew Pulizzi as their internal creator. He was writing the book, he was doing all the speaking, he was writing the articles. It was brilliant because Salesforce immediately became part of all these Web3 events. And then for one reason or another, they gave up on it, but it was working really well. And I'm like, wow, I wish they wouldn't have given up on that because Matthew was doing an amazing job. And they just sort of figured that out, that Matthew had an interest in that. He understood tokenization, and they went out and they did that. Indian corporation, they manufacture industrial soldering equipment. That's a sexy industry for you. This blog, which is the best lead generator vehicle they have, their blog. I think there used to be 33 or 34 different writers at one time in this blog. Now there's pretty much one. It's Dr. Ron. Dr. Ron's the guy. They put all their efforts and resources behind Dr. Ron. They do really well. But again, there's another example of how you could take somebody internally and create an amazing blog content experience. So this is how I look at it. Think of it if you were sending a newsletter. The newsletter doesn't come from your company, right? It doesn't come from your content brand. It comes from an individual. So that individual is your employee. Or if you're your outsourced employee, however you're doing that. So it's from that, and then the content brand, in this case would be the Tilt. In my case, it would be the Tilt, and then the company is Lulu. So I would think about these opportunities in multiple areas, and I would honestly test out one or two. Like, you don't roll this out, obviously. Test out one or two, see how it goes. But you probably have to get some data on your employees on what they're doing, what they like to do, but I think there's a huge, huge opportunity here. So you take the creator employee, you find the platform, you get them out speaking, there's PR there, interviews, you help them create the book, sell that book directly, social integration, newsletter, and leads to your KPI. It's all, see how easy it is? But there's opportunity there. And if you don't believe me, this is New York Times, just a portion of the newsletters that New York Times does. And if you looked at this 3 years ago, there were no faces. And if you look at this 3 years from now, they'll all be faces. If that doesn't tell you where it's going, all the newsletters that New York Times are launching have individuals behind them. I had to put this in here because Gordon made me do it. How about AI? Did you see this? Ukraine's spokesperson is an AI entity. I don't know how I feel about this. I just want you to know it's being done. But I do think there's an opportunity for something like this. If you've seen, is it McCullough? So this is an AI creator, if you will, AI entity, has many followers, and same as in this book. That's TikTok, it's on Instagram as well. But I think you testing out something like this is probably okay. And I like the fact that you can actually create an asset out of this. So I like this a lot better than other uses of AI actually for some reason, because I think you might actually have something. So if there's a new area, I've been trying to figure out some research, maybe you know more than I do, but it seems like younger folks, younger than me, don't care if it's a real person or not. So if you look at the greatest growth in AI that's going to happen, it's going to be in companionship. And I'm not saying that that's where we're going, but I think that if you think about that and you look at AI creators or AI entities like this, I think there might be an opportunity. That's all I'm going to spend on that. Number 3, pillar content projects. So I would say, what topic do we need to be the leading expert in the world on something? And then for that, you make a big splash and a big statement with something like a book. Like we did with Epic Content Marketing. Like we need to have the textbook for the industry if we're going to be the leading expert in content marketing. It was a very specific strategy as we did that. The same thing for HubSpot. They said they wanted to be the leader in then called inbound marketing. So they created the book Inbound, the event Inbound, which is still run today, which many of you probably have gone to. We created the documentary about content marketing, which probably was one of the greatest things we've ever done. It sent more people to content marketing world than we could imagine. Andy Crestodina wanted to be the leading expert in blogging research. So what does he do? Every year he does a research program on blogging. You guys do a lot of this stuff, but I think that if you're trying to break in as an expert in one of your areas, you do it with a big project. And this is kind of how I think about it. You can do small content to big content all the time. Like you could do a blog to book strategy. You could do a podcast to book to documentary strategy. So little to big is the thing, but I think that we don't look at big to little. So if you look at the way that James Clear did this with Atomic Habits, social media, he wasn't even on social media when he wrote Atomic Habits. So he created the book, and then the book becomes the social fodder. The social fodder then creates the newsletter, they build the audience, and round we go. So I think from that standpoint, you're like, oh, we need to be the leading experts in blank. That's a book. That's a documentary. That's something big. And then that content just isn't just one use, right? It goes on and on and on and on if you think about it, how James Clear did it. Number 4. Or yesterday and AI and all the crazy stuff that's going on. Why would we even look at print? Well, first of all, we don't realize that how many of all of us actually engage in print, especially younger folks. They still like magazines, they still like to read books in print format. There's still an opportunity there. So don't think that, oh, nobody reads print. I think there's going to be a resurgence, but not even that. It's this. What if you said that I would have 100% deliverability and no competition? I give you the Postal Service, right? Does anyone get anything of value in the Postal? No, not really, right? Unless it's your magazines, right? Hopefully that's the case. And I'm like, wow, what an opportunity. And we're all focused on digital content first. When we made that switch 20 years ago, which was the right move. But I think that a lot of us have forgotten, oh my goodness, all our customers, they still have this channel. Like, let's say that was email, or let's say that was TikTok or whatever. We'd be all over that, right? You're like, oh my God, no, none of our competitors are there. We can take all that, we can tell all our stories and take all that attention for ourselves. Big opportunity here. So I would start, I don't have to tell you, if you're going into a market, I would start with a quarterly distribute to the post, integrate, talk to if you get your sales team on board as this being a real loyalty-driven effort, then you probably have won half the battle if you do that. And then you kind of defray some of those costs with non-competitive partners. You all know this, but I'm just saying I would double down on that as we go. I think there's an opportunity, number 5, so there's 2 more. Drive diverse revenues. So if you go back to the assets and revenue diversification, I think we always think naturally that we've got marketing goals that we want to hit, we've got lead gen and loyalty goals, and that's fine, but I don't think we see the opportunity to drive direct revenue. So if anyone seen this case study from Cleveland Clinic? So my friend Amanda Todorovich runs this program for Health Essentials. They get, right now, I don't know what's happened the last couple months, but the last time I talked to her about 6 months ago, they were getting about 15 million plus to their website every month, and it was growing significantly. And I said, well, how's it going from a cost perspective? I can share this information, by the way. They break even. So the cost for all the people and all the tech and everything, they generate revenues in syndicated content, in sponsorship, in custom content and research and everything else they do that pays for everything that you see. And her goal is ultimately to drive a profit, like a media company would. And I asked her, I said, does that detract from the experience? And they said, well, if it detracted from the experience, they wouldn't do it. Now, we could have a conversation about that if that's not true, but it seems to be working quite well for Cleveland Clinic. And the great part is, if she goes and she asks for more budget, it's a pretty easy conversation. She's already breaking even. I would just say there's an opportunity to look at all the different ways, and you saw this before. So you're probably, with right now, you're probably saying, okay, well, we have lead gen goals, we have some loyalty goals with our content, we have some generate better yield goals, whatever, that's great. I would say maybe for 25, think about one of these other areas that we can drive direct revenue. Because your model that you have right now is the exact same as Financial Times, as New York Times, as all media companies, but you're only leveraging a couple of those drivers, which is totally fine. That's the way we've always done it. It doesn't mean it has to be that way. So when Robert Rose and I wrote Killing Marketing in 2007, we had it with the belief that someday marketing would be a profit center. Might be a stretch, but it's obviously possible, and we're seeing Cleveland Clinic and others do it. So I would start thinking about that as a possibility. And this is the last one. Physical experiences. A lot of you, at least that I've talked to already, you sponsored many, many events. And again, that's fine. But I think that the opportunity is to create your own in-person experiences. And I think that, especially with the younger population and the things they've had to go through recently, they might not want to go into work, but they definitely crave in-person experiences. And when I say crave, I mean it's much stronger. I have 2 children, 23 and 21, and they search out these in-person experiences, and they're so important to them. And I've never seen it, I don't remember having that kind of feeling. And then you do some of the research and you realize that that's not just them, it's out there. And I don't know why you can't be the organization that brings that physical in-person event experience to them. And if you are an investor, you probably heard of Berkshire Hathaway, you probably heard of Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett basically invests in businesses that have some kind of a moat. And I believe that has happened with Salesforce and Dreamforce. I believe that's happened with the city of Austin and South by Southwest. I believe that can happen for you. If you build a moat, you can take advantage of the difference between you and your competition with an in-person experience. And it's very hard to do because, I'm sure if you go in to speak with your marketing team and you start talking about, we're going to do a big physical event, they'll be like, what? What are you doing on TikTok? Or whatever the conversation happened. I would say that there's such an opportunity for you to create this physical experience. You might have to divert funds to do it, but there's a great opportunity. Again, there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that have created some amazing events that you're sponsoring right now. and maybe instead of sponsoring, you could actually buy those. So I created, with the team, we created the Tilt and we created Content Entrepreneur Expo. And our biggest sponsor was Lulu, the Lulu printing company, self-publishing company. And I got in a conversation with them, and they said they wanted to do their own event. This is a year and a half ago. And I said, why don't you just buy my event? I don't want to run it anymore. I wanted to create it. I'd like to still be a part of it, but I don't want to run it day to day. I'm supposed to be retired. And they said, great. And 6 months later, they bought it. So now Lulu, and so it's been hopefully been a really great experience for them, and they're hitting all their goals, and they're signing up more people, and they launched an imprint called self-publishing and all that stuff, but I think there's a real opportunity there if we just look and ask the questions for that. So, I'm gonna sum up. Back to me. As my wife says, you always bring it back to you. I'm so sorry. So, 33-year-old Joe, and take it to pre-33-year-old Joe. This is actually me in my trophy world uniform. And that's something. I couldn't see, that was before glasses. I couldn't see anything. I didn't think there was a problem. But the reason why I'm showing you this is that I got into content marketing because I felt it was the best kind of marketing. I was really distrustful of media when I was younger, and I was like, there has to be a better way. And then I found, oh my God, you can actually deliver value to customers outside of the products you offer. And that's how I look at content creation. I'm like, can't be a more noble profession than what we're doing. I really do believe it. I really do believe that to a point. So that's what I really think, that there's an opportunity where you're here, so you're already believing in this stuff. So I don't have to sell this to you, but I really believe there's an opportunity for us to do more, and for us to really look at, hey, are we really doing all we can to love our customers and to help them live better lives and get better jobs? And if we do that, and we help them live better lives and get better jobs, it's just going to help us as well. So I would say life is short, so we need to do more of this. Again, I don't know the battles you have to fight, but I think they're battles worth fighting. So that's my, you have another day to do all this. You have some great speakers coming in, and what I would ask you to keep in mind as you listen to all these wonderful presentations is, maybe we went a little bit astray with some of the content we're producing. No fault of ours, this is the way it is. But now it's time to take our content line back, think of assets and revenue diversification. If we do that really well, we'll build customers that know, like, and trust us. And if you want to keep your job, you keep your job. Thank you very much. I will be around.